Governor, I'm happy to talk to you in this next section about energy issues. Let's talk about climate change. What is true and what is false about what we have heard, read, discussed, debated about the causes of climate change?
Yeah, well, as the nation's only Arctic state and being the governor of that state, Alaska feels and sees impacts of climate change more so than any other state, and we know that it's real. I'm not one to attribute every activity of man to the changes in the climate. There is something to be said also for man's activities, but also for the cyclical temperature changes on our planet. But there are real changes going on in our climate, and I don't want to argue about the causes. So even in dealing with climate change, it's all the more reason that we have an all-of-the-above approach, tapping into alternative sources of energy and conserving fuel, conserving our petroleum products and our hydrocarbons so that we can clean up this planet and deal with climate change.
Senator, what is true and what is false about the causes?
Well, I think it is man-made. I think it's clearly man-made. And look, this probably explains the biggest fundamental difference between John McCain and Barack Obama and Sarah Palin and Joe Biden, Governor Palin and Joe Biden. If you don't understand what the cause is, it's virtually impossible to come up with a solution. We know what the cause is. The cause is man-made. That's the cause. That's why the polar ice cap is melting.
I just want to ask you, do you support capping carbon emissions?
I do.
Okay.
But here's the bottom line, Gwen. How do we deal with global warming with continued addition to carbon emissions?
Senator McCain, I want to know, we saw that Congress moved pretty fast in the face of an economic crisis. I want to know what you would do within the first 2 years to make sure that Congress moves fast as far as environmental issues like climate change and green jobs.
That we may hand our children and our grandchildren a damaged planet. I have disagreed strongly with the Bush administration on this issue. I traveled all over the world looking at the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. Joe Lieberman and I introduced the first legislation, and we forced votes on it. That's the good news, my friends. Bad news is we lost. But we kept the debate going, and we kept this issue to posing to Americans the danger that climate change poses. Now, what's the best way of fixing it? Nuclear power.
This is one of the biggest challenges of our times, and it is absolutely critical that we understand this is not just a challenge, it's an opportunity. So it's easy to talk about this stuff during a campaign, but it's important for us to understand that it requires a sustained effort from the next president. And we're not going to be able to deal with the climate crisis if our only solution is to use more fossil fuels that create global warming.